stand up here this evening. Our Alumni Council has been meeting today, and so I would like all the Alumni Council members that are here tonight to please stand up and be recognized. So, Alumni Council members, please stand up. They are from all over North America here. We have 25 Alumni Council members here today, and so we had some good meetings today, and I just wanted to recognize them as well. I would like also the folks here tonight that are brothers or sisters or brother-in-laws or sister-in-laws of our distinguished alumni here tonight. So if you're a brother or sister or brother-in-law or sister-in-law of Jim and John and Marlis, would you please? Nephews and nieces count too. You may stand up too. Spouses, please. Yeah. And are most of you from Edgerton, Minnesota? Is that true too? Ah, there we go. Or Southwest Minnesota. We're glad that you could be here tonight too. Thanks so much for coming tonight. The purpose of the Distinguished Alumni Award, first of all, the award is granted by the Dordt College Alumni Association, and it's to recognize members who have made a significant contribution in their field of endeavor, and to be recognized by their associates for outstanding achievement. Anyone who is an alumnus or alumna is eligible. And the significant contribution of this person may be in any field of endeavor. The nature of the contribution and the extent to which it is deemed worthy of consideration is to be determined by the Alumni Council, who is here today, and the co-curricular committee. The persons selected for this award manifest a Christian commitment that we have felt reflects well on Dordt College. First distinguished alumni that I would like to recognize is, that we'd like to recognize is Marlis DeWitt Potma. Marlis is from the class of 1978, and she represents the natural sciences. Marlis received her Bachelor of Arts from Dordt College in physical education. And currently, Marlis is a senior projects director at campaign headquarters in Brooklyn, Iowa. The Des Moines Register newspaper featured Marlis as one of the 50 top individuals in Iowa that can make or break a GOP presidential candidate. Marlis is among Iowa's most experienced and respected social conservative organizers. She has commanded top positions in Iowa Right to Life, the state GOP, and many Iowa campaigns since 1996. The person who nominated Marlis said this: Marlis has done amazing and passionate work in many areas. She's a terrific speaker, and above all, has a deep love for God and the work that He has called her to do. Would you please recognize Marlis Papa?
Only an alumni banquet would make me put on a dress. I was a PE major after that. And I have to tell you, this is actually very humbling. First of all, and most of all, I'm a wife and a mom and a grandma. And that's how I didn't always see myself as a grandma, but I was always a wife and a mom. Whatever else the Lord brought in front of me. And I was thinking about tonight and about getting this award and being a PE major, and how, in Wes's comments about God's plan in our life, and how amazing it is that we have a creator of the universe who knows us so well that He can say, this, my child, is the plan I have for you. And the interesting thing is every one of us still has things to do here, because I am convinced that the day he takes me home is the day he is done with me. And so if we're still here, he still has something for us. Every one of us. He has got a plan for every one of us. And I started thinking about, what people did God use in my life to weave his plan? And the first person he used in my life was my mother. My mother taught me about faith and the importance of prayer. I had a father who died much too young. And I don't think anyone will ever know how much he taught me about intestinal fortitude and dealing with adversity. I have siblings who showed me the importance of a family bond. I have a husband who let me be me. And that was not always the easiest thing, I'm sure. I have children who taught me patience and taught me more about love than anything ever could have. Because there's nothing like the love of a mom or a dad to her children. I had teachers who mentored me, two in particular that went to this college and said to me, Marlis, you need to go to Dordt. I am here because of Helen Kobus and because of Sue Lyons. She was Sue Lyons when she was here and then became Sue Content. They were both physical education teachers, one in my junior high and one in my senior high. And I had a college and professors who taught me about the importance of service and a worldview that God is involved in everything in our lives. Everything. And then I look at kind of what's been behind me, don't know what's going to be in front. And my husband and I one night walked out of the east wing of the White House after a Christmas party. And we looked back and we said, how in the world did this happen? And 14 years ago, this coming November, every morning at 4 o'clock for several weeks, I walked into Blank Children's Hospital neonatal intensive care unit, and I prayed over 7 babies, the McCoy septuplets. And then after I got done praying over them, I went out and did an interview with Good Morning America, or one of the other different shows, because I was their spokesperson. And I said, how did that ever happen? And it happened because God laid out the plans. None of it happened because I tried to make it happen. It happened because God had all of these individuals in my life who were shaping and molding me into the person that I'm to be. And this college was a deep, deep part of that. And I'm going to just encourage all of you to think about who you are molding and who you are shaping. Because there's still many people to be molded and shaped. And this great creation the Lord has given us. But I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you for the opportunity to have graduated from Dordt College. And thank you for this award. God bless.
Thank you, Marlis. And chance to visit with Marlis this last spring. He stopped in my office, and I still remember that day, Marlis, and I truly enjoyed the opportunity to visit with you, and I'm glad that you were able to be here tonight. The next person that we'd like to recognize is Reverend John Roosevelt from the class of 1962. John was a pre-seminary student and received his AA degree from Dordt College when it was just a 2-year college. He went on to Calvin College, Calvin Seminary, and Fuller Seminary after graduating from Dordt College. Beginning in 1969, John was a new church developer in Riverside, California. In 1976, he accepted the Regional Home Missionary Regional Director position for the Western United States for Christian Reformed Home Missions. Then in 1986, John was appointed to the position of Executive Director for Christian Reformed Home Missions, from which he retired in December of 2008. He is still busy in retirement, and as John told The Voice when reflecting on his career and his retirement, I believe that was in an interview with Dave Skahas, he said, Jesus posed the question recorded in Luke 18, concluding his teaching on persistent intercessory prayer. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Well, Linda, John's wife, and I both want to be around ministry that contributes to answering Jesus' question with a resounding yes. Would you please recognize Reverend John Roosevelt?
Pay close attention to Wes, because if he looms, as he did this morning, Jim was giving us a tremendous overview of economics in the world, most of which Dave and I were sitting together understood. A fair amount of which we understood. We had to also get over to have an interview on the radio, the electric radio, with President Zylstra, and somehow, when Wes started to loom, Jim started to finish, and we got over there in time. So anyway, keep your eye on Wes. I'm batting cleanup for Marlis and setup for Jim. Good evening and thank you, Wes, and Alumni Council, and those persons on the co-curricular committee, which I understand includes students. I have my grandchildren here, so I don't know who would vote for me. Faculty, students, and staff who voted for us three. A sharp bunch of people. Thank you very much. Thank you for a lovely dinner and a chance to share it with family and friends. I'm grateful to be remembered at all, 49 years after leaving the place, and it's satisfying indeed to be recognized with Marlis and Jim. Have you caught on by now that two of us are from Southwest Minnesota Christian High School in Edgerton, Minnesota? I think that's so cool. Dordt College is significant in my life. In a 2009 Dordt Voice interview from which Wes quoted, I named my Dordt profs whose persons and courses helped me in specific ways. And you can look that up. Tonight, here are two words: audacity, spirited risk-taking, and tenacity, persisting in hanging on. Hanging on. Audacity and tenacity fit the Dordt story in the early days when I lived in the story. And they live on for me in friends, family, and leaders I knew, all connected to Dordt, whose memory and influence persists. Qualities I admire. I stirred them up in the teams with which I worked, in myself, in home missions. Audacity. In 1963, three of us Dordt grads, Harvey Blankespore, he was the first recipient of this deal. How old was he, 16 years old or something? I mean, 20 years ago, I think. That Harvey is ubiquitous, long life. Harvey Blankespore, Bill Vental, another Dordt guy, these are all Dordt guys, and I were pushing north to Alaska, driving straight through, decided to stop in downtown the downtown YMCA in Edmonton, Alberta for a shower and a swim. Getting undressed, Bill Vental said, "Say, will you guys show me how to swim?" Silence. I thought, stupid. We have jobs protecting the salmon fishery. Fish, ocean. Can't swim? I thought, Harvey's a coach. He knows how to do this. We walked to the edge of the pool, stood in a row over the 9 feet. Harv, Bill, me. Harv looked at me, nodded to the water, and we pushed Bill in. And jumped after him. Bill sank like a stone, came up full of fight, and we proceeded to get him to tread water and dog battle. No fear. He was a natural. He firmly denied ever having been swimming before, saying, "No one ever told me I couldn't. I never tried it." Audacity. He was the director of World Missions for a while. Carl worked with him on the board. He was a missionary in Africa, learning teeth, and then after the stint in the office, he went to Mexico and was a missionary sharing the gospel in another language. There is no record of Reverend B.J. Hahn, Dordt's founding president, ever giving or receiving a swimming lesson in the downtown Edmonton Y. Nevertheless, he practiced spirited risk-taking, especially as he emerged as a leader of a small group in the 1950s who birthed Dordt College. In the early 90s, I was one of some Dordt alumni who were touring with the Jack Broken House Choir, singing in Reformed churches in Holland. Then I really got to know Bernie Hahn and Deborah Hahn. In an evening conversation in a hotel near Kampen, the Netherlands, we listened, attention riveted, to him tell great stories about Dordt's early days. And he also preached their application. Don't be afraid to take risks, he said. And pray, Deborah Hahn said. With others, by no means himself, Reverend Hahn planted a college. More precisely, he was the leader, the cheerleader, the spark plug, the prayer among many prayers who were present at the creation of a Christian institution that hangs on and thrives. We should all have immense respect for those who plant colleges, churches, businesses, friendship clubs, do-good organizations. Linda and I testify to the risk, the bone-wearying work, and prayer required to gather people of faith to build a community that has the service of God and people as its aim, as we did in Riverside, California. In October, Linda and I will join in the 50th birthday of the Riverside Church. Here are the Dordt risks that accompanied its beginning. Opening a school in 1955 with little money and few constituents in the gas tank. It was a risk for Dordt growing into a liberal arts college beyond the narrower mission of a teacher training school. Calvin President William Spoolhoff said, when the first building over there of Dordt was dedicated, "We educate first of all not to earn a living, but to live a life." Audacity. More Dordt audacity as I experienced it. Greek prof John Zinkan sent us as pre-sem students to Calvin as juniors with advanced reading ability of Plato That's a Greek guy, philosopher. Ahead of the game, we led our class as juniors, Greek students, in Calvin College. Archie Nibley, Dordt first-year student, presented a guild recital of wonderful organ music in a big Sioux City sanctuary. A reviewer, some Sioux City paper said, a mature performance. Archie sure folded. Audacity. Dordt's influence, traits of audacity and tenacity. Dave Skelos wrote, when he sent Linda and me his fine book, Angling in the English Stream. I got a pitch or two to make here. This is the Angling in the English Stream. This is a book of poems, the God of material things. If you've ever walked to school in some northern city on a really cold morning, these poems are for you, and there are a lot of other poems in there too. Get your hands on them. These are all available in the Dordt bookstore up there. I checked. This is a history of Dordt College. The author is here by Mike Manenbosch. It's the early days. Some of this stuff is just as incredible as it's just unbelievable. So your lives will be better if you pick up these books, okay? So do it. Dave Skelos wrote a letter to me when he sent his book. I wanted you to have the book because in some strange way you hover in my subconscious mind, not as a critic, but as an encourager and as an inspirer. Your friendship, almost 60 years long now, has remained significant in my life. And I want to give you the same compliment that Dave gave me. Thank you to a bunch of folks here for being encouragers and inspirers. Rather much like angels, God's messengers of good, who move so lightly, unseen, yet often heard or sensed. Someone said, a person never gets over high school. I never got over Dordt. A student called our house this Monday for a gift. Dordt won't let you get over it. That's true. It's absolutely true. Linda spoke with this young lady. I never got over you. There are a lot of years for many of us between now and Dordt days. When I think of you, I think of tenacity. Persisting in hanging on. Loyal. Sticking with it. Showing up. Here are some lifelong images of Dordt tenacity that help keep me keeping on. Dordt basketball in the early days. Harvey Blanketspoor was an Iowa Junior College All-Stater, 4 years after the school got launched. Once in an overtime game, Tom Van Ouden was here, and Dave Skelos was here. Scored all the points for our side. These games were brutal, some of them. I'm not sure what went on, but some of those junior colleges, I think, lacking football teams, sent the remnants of the Neanderthal species to come here to play basketball. It was brutal. And I was very content then to play trombone in the band. 40 repetitions of Rock Around the Clock. Safe. They never touched my face, not my nose. I didn't get anything broken. What I saw in those two guys in that game, and Dave played with his tongue clenched between his teeth. I thought he would get a tonguectomy out of this deal. What they said was, we will not lose this game. I don't forget that. Tenacity. Linda Vanderveen, now Roosevelt. Dordt choir accompanist when I was a singer, jumping in an instant in her piano score to the 8th measure after C, the letter C. looking over the music rack of the big grand, meeting the demanding stare, giving back to Jack Grotenhouse, director, as good as he gave. Tenacity. The teachers, educators in this room who stayed the course, in classrooms, English teachers, friendship leaders, university profs, Christian school principal for decades, Glenn Scott was my cousin, invited to be here, but apparently couldn't make it. Incredible, more than a decade. President Carl Zalska, more than a decade in the president's chair in Dordt. Truth be known, those are the kinds of jobs that, 10 years in that is about 25 in any other. Tenacity. Those of you from my family here, others of you have served and led Christian education as board presidents, board members, funds raisers, prayers, and supporters for years and years and years. Thank you. In this chapter of our lives, mine and Linda's, with engaging challenges of ministry, I work in an inner city church. Linda still teaches piano, and life ramping up all around for she and me. I pray that your living testimonies of risk-taking and hanging on, audacity and tenacity, keep on. Thank you all, and God bless you.
In recognition of John's words, all those people here tonight that are retired Dordt faculty or employees, we'd sure like to have you stand up so that we can recognize you for your work here in the kingdom. Please stand up. Our final distinguished alumni that we'd like to recognize is Dr. James Verbrugge from the class of 1960, representing the Social Sciences Division. Dr. Verbrugge received his AA degree from Dordt College when it was a 2-year college as well. He is Emeritus Professor of Finance at the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia, where he served as Professor of Finance from 1978 to 2002, and was the chairman of the Department of Banking and Finance at Terry College from 1977 until 2001. He also held the Georgia Bankers Association Chair of Banking from 1992 to 2002. He is an expert on the banking industry. Dr. Verbrugge has testified on the modernization of the Federal Home Loan Banking System before the United States Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, and his research on financial markets and institutions, banking, and bank privatization has been widely published, and his teaching interests include venture capital, management of financial institutions, and money and capital markets. James is well respected in his field and is active in consulting work. He serves on many corporate boards and has been involved in several startup companies that have done very well as well. He also serves on the advisory committee of the NFL Players Association Financial Programs and Advisor Administration. And he has his PhD in economics from the University of Kentucky. Would you please welcome Dr. James Verbrugge. Promise not to loom over you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. John, I have to follow that. You make it tough. This is appropriate. I also, among other this to my many clocks that are around the house. Somebody asked me one time, how many do you have? And I says, well, it depends on your definition of a clock. But that's another story. It's been an interesting day, quite obviously. I started at 6:45 this morning. Thanks a lot, Wes. And had an interview on the radio with the other two honorees and Dr. Zostra. And then an interview for the Voice, the Alumni Magazine, and then a class at 2 o'clock with John Visser, which was great fun, because I hadn't been in front of undergraduates for a while. I've focused mainly on EMBAs, executive MBAs, for quite a few years. So it's been a fun day. And like the others, I really want to thank the Alumni Council and Committee for this honor. I don't know where they dug me up, because I've been out of the circle of the CRC for a very long time, ever since I graduated from Calvin College and drifted to the southeast, where we thought we would stay about 2 years, and spent 35 years on the faculty at the University of Georgia. But somehow, I think I know what's happened, but I'm deeply honored for this. And I'm the old guy in the group, having been 1960, and some of the folks that were mentioned by John Hart Blankenspore, I played basketball with him. He was an enemy initially because he played for Hull Christian. Tom and I played for Southwest Christian, but we became teammates here. And Tom, I want to acknowledge my family members who are in the back 2 tables, a couple sisters, brothers-in-law, and don't worry, I'll get to you, Marcia. Many of that side of the family are Dordt graduates. My brother-in-law, Dallas Roskamp, and his wife, Renee. Marcus Roskamp, who's a very recent graduate of Dordt College and is now a pastor. So our family has long ties to Dordt. I even have a son of a nephew of mine who is currently here. So I ran into him today. So it's generational. Even though our own children did not go here. They went to other places. And my wife of many years, my friend, my best friend, and my wife of now 49 years, Marcia, who's been with me all this time through all the trials. And especially Tom Denowden, who's an old high school friend, as well as a friend here, and a roommate at Calvin when I was there. And now he has a son in Asheville, North Carolina, who's a deputy sheriff. And we have a place in the mountains in North Carolina, so we see Tom and Beth in North Carolina, of all places, on some occasions. I will take a little different tack than the others do. I'm not a preacher, so I can't do what John did. He's eloquent beyond belief, but I will get him into the comment here at the end. That's the one blessing of being last, I guess. It's been a long journey from Dordt to Calvin, then to the University of Kentucky, where we, as some of our friends and family said back then, you have left the church because we became Presbyterians. But it's all the same stuff. Let's face it, it's all Reformed doctrine and Calvinism. We might argue about some of the terms, and I'll come to that at the end as well. But it's been a long journey, and then 35 years on the faculty at UGA. But we've always had ties to the Midwest because of family, and so we've come back periodically. Our immediate families are not here. My son Ross and his wife, who's a minister in the Presbyterian Church, and our 2 grandchildren, and our oldest son who passed away 16 years ago. So that's a hole in our heart, obviously. For a long time, I have realized the importance of the formative years of our lives. And I don't mean just 5, 6, and 7. I mean those years from 16 through 21, when you're in high school and when you're in college. And the problems that kids have who don't handle those formative years well. You don't see it much in Northwest Iowa, but we see it a lot in communities where I've lived and in large cities where John currently works, that the dropout rate is so bad. And these kids are in trouble from day one. And I'm reminded of the great philosopher, not Plato. I will use Yogi Berra. He was much more famous than Plato, probably, in contemporary literature. But he was known for famous quotes. And somebody tried to convince him one day that the only innings in a ball game were the late innings. And tried to impress upon them that the early innings were just as important. And his comment to that effect was, it gets late real early out there. And that same thing applies to education. Being at Dordt, being in high schools that educate well, those years, once lost, are very difficult to recapture. And schools like Dordt play an important role. Dordt was vital in my life. It was the right place for me at that point in my life. Had I tried to go to a state university, probably would not have made it. Had I gone to Calvin, I'm not sure my folks would have let me go. But Dordt was the right place for me at that point in time. So I view Dordt as a place where it sort of launched the rest of my life, and I had not a clue what I was going to do. I had professors like Pete DeBoer, who I dearly loved, Van Scowen, who taught us Bible, but was also a counselor of great importance in my life. So those people never leave your memory. Life is really a journey in terms of career and also in terms of a faith journey, because it's not a destination. You know, we don't live for the final day. The faith journey is that, it's a journey. One of the things we did in a small group of which we were a member was, the first thing we did was all share our faith journeys. Now, I remarked to somebody today, if you did that with some of the CRC kids at Dordt, one person could do the story and the rest of them would say, yeah. But in a church like ours, which is made up of a lot of people who were not born in the Calvinist tradition, the faith journeys are strikingly different. But we all reach the same point of deep and abiding faith. And I think that's the important part. And in each case, some particular event, religious event, some person had a dramatic impact on their life in getting to where they are. In the Reformed and Calvinist tradition, there are several very important 5-letter words. I'll let you think about that a minute while I say something else. John Roosevelt and I shared several of the same teachers in high school. Southwest Christian, Edgerton Rules, definitely. And his name was J.C. Lovis, who was also on the founding board of this place early on. But he was known among us as very strict disciplinarians. Tom knows that as well. And I have several episodes with him that I won't talk about. But he, I would say inspired is the wrong word, because his method of teaching was more one of motivation by fear. And that included not only his style, but his view about Christianity. You know, we lived in mortal fear of this God who was so judgmental. It took me a long time to get over that. And I don't blame him, it was his way. It was his way. But the very important acronym that he kind of impressed upon us was a word that all of you know, TULIP, with emphasis on the first one, the T, and you know what that means. But over the years, I've realized that there's a more important 5-letter word. And I hope it's true, because when I look at John Roosevelt, and if there is a book of books in the final day and there's a set of check marks, he's going to get a lot more than me because of what he's done. His career is beyond description in the Christian faith. So I believe the most important word in Christendom today is grace. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Marlis and John and James, for your testimonies tonight and for the sharing that you've done. We are so privileged to have had you with us, and we're thankful that you were here. To close tonight, I've asked Dr. Zylstra to close our time together. So, Dr. Zylstra, this is the president here at Dordt College, and this is his final year. He and Gloria have some new plans after this academic year, and so I'm guessing this will probably be the last time that you participate in this as well. So I want to thank you for the support that you've given to the Alumni Council and to the Alumni Association, and for this event that we've had. We've sure appreciated it. So,
well, that's good. Gloria and I have some new plans that Wes knows about. I wish he'd share them with us. It is wonderful to be here tonight, and you've seen, these honorees were speaking, you've seen people in interesting costumes going past. That's the Pops concert getting ready, so I'll let you get over there. That usually is pretty much of a packed house. But I did have one reflection as I sat here tonight. I was looking at this podium, which is a gorgeous podium, and it was crafted by now retired Professor Del Vanderzee. And I thought, that'd be kind of nice for Dr. Vanderzee to be able to sit here and see the results of his handiwork. That reminded me of when I was a student at college, at a different college, so I can't come back and get an alumnus award. But I was working in a large factory where people didn't craft things like this. But they made church furniture, they made stadium seating, they made school desks, they made auditorium furniture. And one of my jobs was to find pictures of completed installations. At that time, the new Busch Stadium in St. Louis was new. Now it's been torn down. But at that time, it was new. And so I remember getting some great shots of that stadium, and then putting together posters and put them around the factory. The Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, the old Guthrie Theater, was new at that time. And so we had some pictures like that. And the whole purpose of putting those together was so that you might just be stamping out a piece of metal. You might just be assembling a bracket. You might just be putting some foam into a seat. Or you may be putting a little upholstery over a previously molded seat. That might be your individual task. But the final result is that what you're doing is creating environments where people can go to the Guthrie and sit in beauty and enjoy the arts. To go to Busch Stadium and cheer on the Cardinals. You could do all of those kinds of things because of your individual work finally coming to conclusion long after the furniture, the seats, the furnishings had been packed up and shipped out of the factory. Well, that's what we are doing tonight. The impact that our faculty and staff have in nurturing the lives of Christian youth really doesn't come to fruition until a number of years later, when you can really see how it's all come to pass. How Marlis Popma has her impact across the state and across the nation. How John Roosevelt was effective in church development across the country in Canada. How Professor Verbrugge was able to not only teach graduate students and executive MBAs at the University of Georgia, but was through his writings able to help shape the economic future of our country. Those are the impacts that we don't see when you're saying goodbye to a 22-year-old fresh graduate. But when we invite you back on a time like this, you're the handiwork. You're the posters. You're the ones who stand before us and inspire us to keep going, to teaching that finance class, to teaching that physical education class, to teaching that Greek class. That may seem like just one small part, but put together in the poster that God is developing, it becomes a picture of his coming kingdom for his glory and for his praise. And indeed, then we do know it's grace. For that's the only way this college could have had the audacity and the tenacity with which it has been developing over the past decades. And that's the only way that this college can have the courage and the hope to look forward and pray that 40 years from now, someone else will be standing here and a new wave of distinguished alumni will be honored on this platform. And at that time, too, people will be able to look at that poster of what God has accomplished in the lives of the graduates that we have touched today, and all together we'll say, Soli Deo Gloria. To God alone be all the glory. Please join me in prayer. We thank you, God, for you are the one who has gathered us, called us, and sent us out. You give us the tasks to do each day, and you give us the opportunities for service, to discover new things about the glory of your world, and to touch your world in ways that help it reflect more fully the desires you have for it, for your praise and your honor. We pray then that what we have done tonight will have been one more step of encouragement along that road, and as we leave here, we'll be kept in safety and joy to go out in peace, to love and serve our Lord. In his name we pray. Amen. Have a blessed evening. Thank you for being part of this celebration tonight.